So Jim Harbaugh won't be suspended for the first 4 games of the upcoming season. Why? And what's really going on inside the NCAA? Locked on Big Ten starts now.
You are Locked On Big Ten, your daily podcast on the Big Ten Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Big Ten. I'm Craig Sheeman. Thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. You know, we're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And we're brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege. Terms and conditions apply. So today's show, we're going to talk about Jim Harbaugh. His suspension, poof, it's gone, at least for now. And Gene Keady, Hall of Famer, maybe a bit overdue. And our Big Ten Top 10. If you're a Big Ten fan, you're not going to like this. You want to hang around to the end for that. Be sure to subscribe and follow Locked On Big Ten for free wherever you get your podcast. That way you'll get the latest episode of this podcast as soon as it becomes available each and every day. All right, Jim Harbaugh. A couple weeks ago, we learned that the Michigan football coach was about to be suspended for the first 4 games of the upcoming season by the NCAA for alleged recruiting violations. That means he was going to miss the first 4 games. They're all home games at the Big House. September 2nd, season opener against East Carolina. The UNLV game, the Bowling Green game, and the Big Ten opener against Rutgers. Look, whether Jim Harbaugh was there or not, they were heavy favorites in all of those games. He would not be able to come back until the September 30th game on the road against Nebraska. In fact, his first game as the head coach of the suspension is stuck at the Big House. His first home game wouldn't have been until October 14th against the Indiana Hoosiers. Just like half the season be gone. This is a big special season coming up for Michigan. So, look, the NCAA decided that Jim Harbaugh had improper contact with recruits during a dead recruiting period where he wasn't allowed to have contact. It was during the COVID pandemic. That's when coaches were not allowed to be in contact with kids. But there's a little more to this story, and it involves some of Harbaugh's assistants at Michigan and some other things. But we're going to kind of oversimplify it here for this point. It seems that Harbaugh met with and bought a couple of recruits a cheeseburger in Ann Arbor during this downtime for recruiting. And that's when the NCAA caught wind and investigated the situation. So they went back and forth with Harbaugh, and the NCAA seems to feel that Harbaugh was not being truthful with them throughout all this. But this story continued to grow, going on for months. And public opinion has boiled down to this. Harbaugh is being suspended for 4 games because he bought some cheeseburgers. And look, it's ridiculous, right? Just hearing those words come out of my mouth. It's ridiculous. It absolutely is ridiculous. So my opinion was that the NCAA wasn't so upset with Harbaugh for meeting with kids during a dead recruiting period during COVID and buying them a cheeseburger. They were upset because they feel like Harbaugh was not truthful to them or misleading at best. In fact, an unnamed source in the Detroit Free Press this weekend, I don't know if you caught it, but if you didn't, I'll tell you, said that this is really a 1-game suspension for the recruiting violation, for the meeting during a time when you couldn't, which involved the cheeseburger story. And that was a level 2 recruiting violation, got secondary, right? And then an additional 3-game suspension for a level 1 violation for not being truthful to the NCAA. So 1 game for the cheeseburger and 3 games for lying is basically what the NCAA is coming out and has been saying all along. So the lawyers are getting involved in this whole time, and they're Jim Harbaugh's lawyers, and they're negotiating. And we learned a couple weeks ago that these negotiations were going on back and forth. I'm like, what? since when does the NCAA say it's going to give some sort of punishment, but then negotiate the punishment between the party who's being suspended or punished? Never can I remember that in my entire lifetime. But Harbaugh would not budge on his recollection of the events and insisted that he never lied. So this just went on and on for months. Well, this weekend, we learned that the forced suspension, it fell apart. Not going to take place. Not this season anyway. So the big headlines this weekend, Jim Harbaugh will coach the entire season in 2023 for the Michigan Wolverines. Great news for Michigan football fans. No doubt. Great news. So what's going on here, really? Because it doesn't mean he's out of the woods altogether. The agreement to suspend Harbaugh 4 games needed approval from the NCAA Committee of Infractions. And that's off the table now. I don't know if they wanted more information. They couldn't come to a head. Harbaugh refusing to admit that he lied at any one point. Anyway, it's all blown up now. And so now this case goes to what is called a normal hearing process. And this could push the punishment into 2024 because they won't get it done. They won't get it heard and figured out by the time this upcoming season is over with. So in effect, Harbaugh and Michigan have successfully run the clock on this whole thing for this upcoming season. And when you say, and when you hear that this punishment may not happen until 2024, you and I both know Harbaugh might not even be coaching Michigan in 2024. He might be back off into the NFL by then. He might. I mean, you have to consider it with Harbaugh, right? So there's another interesting story here. Harbaugh months ago was supposed to be getting a contract extension. You know, the last time he went through the whole NFL, maybe I will, maybe I won't. He was supposed to get a contract. And when he said, I'm going to stay at Michigan, I'm going to be enthusiastically coaching Michigan in 2023. He's supposed to get a new contract extension at that point. Well, here we are in August, and it hasn't happened yet. So I don't know if this whole NCAA investigation has slowed things down. I don't know if things have cooled. I don't know if Harbaugh thinks he's leaving again after this. I don't know. We'll have plenty of time to talk about it on this podcast on Locked On Big Ten. That's for sure. We're going to try and figure out what is going on here in this particular case. So the narrative that the NCAA looked incompetent for suspending Harbaugh for buying the cheeseburgers for the kids, it was growing. It was going on. And it was making the NCAA look very stupid and petty and overbearing, and the NCAA knew it. So much so that this past weekend, the NCAA Vice President of Hearing, Derek Crawford, took to social media and took a very unusual step of making a public statement about an ongoing investigation. And he said, quote, the impermissible on and off campus recruiting during the COVID-19 dead period and not a cheeseburger was the reason for all this. He actually said that in his official statement from the NCAA. It's almost laughable. So that public statement, though, did not seem to please Harbaugh's lawyer, Tom Mars, who's been negotiating behind the scenes on Harbaugh's behalf throughout all this. After all, Harbaugh and the school have not commented on this case publicly. In fact, you'll remember, and we talked about it here on this podcast, during Big Ten Media Days, Harbaugh was even pressed then about the situation. And he said he wished he could spell it out for everybody. He really wanted to talk. He said, I can't comment on it. And then after that, he added that he had nothing to be ashamed of here, whatever took place, and it'll all come out in due time. One thing we know is that Harbaugh will be on the sideline coaching the Wolverines for every single game this season with a team that is loaded. Not only can they and might they win the Big Ten championship, they very well could win the national championship. This is Harbaugh's best team, and he's ready to go, and he is going to be on the sideline for every single game this season for the Michigan Wolverines. 2024 can wait till 2024. Certainly like to welcome your comments on Twitter at Talk Big Ten, or any comments that you can hit me up with on the bottom of the YouTube page. We'd certainly appreciate that. We'll get back to you. And also, coming up, I want to talk to you about former Purdue basketball coach Gene Keady. Got inducted into the Naismith Hall of Fame this weekend. I have a question. What took so long? Seriously, I'll explain all that. That's coming up on Locked On Big Ten. I've been in a position before where I've had to hire people. Nobody likes to do it. There's a lot of work going on in the office, doubling up because you have a vacancy. It takes time. It's pressure. You don't want to hire the wrong person because that could make things worse. Well, these days, every new potential hire can feel like a high stakes wager for your small business. And you want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. Put up the job posting. It's very easy. Then you add the job in the purple hashtag hiring frame for your LinkedIn profile, and that spreads the word to everybody that you're hiring. Simple tools like they have screening questions, for example. They make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you want to interview and eventually hire, because that's the purpose of everything here. That's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs number one in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockdowncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockdowncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. So let me tell you about former Purdue basketball coach Gene Keady. Guess what? He is finally a member of the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame. He was inducted Saturday at Symphony Hall in Springfield, Massachusetts. As you know, that is the birthplace of basketball. Now, I'm going to tell you this right now. If you've been watching this podcast since I took it over in late June, and you're getting to know me a little bit, some of you already figured out, I am an Indiana grad, okay? Purdue was my arch rival, is my arch rival. I went to school in the middle of the Gene Keady, Bob Knight era rivalry. It was great. It was absolutely awesome. But I want you to listen to me when I say this. This was a glaring omission, and it was long overdue. So congratulations to Gene Keady for getting into the Hall of Fame. He may not have won a Final Four, but he is the winningest coach in Purdue history, over 500 wins. He was named the National Coach of the Year 5 times. He was also Big Ten Coach of the Year 7 times. He had been nominated for the Hall of Fame 2 other times, but had not been a finalist since 2006. And come on, that was 17 years ago. What took everybody so long? By the way, Keady enjoying life these days. You see him out and about once in a while. I always like seeing pictures of he and Bob Knight on social media. Every once in a while, Keady will go down to Bloomington and visit Knight. Obviously, they were heated rivals. They're friends now. A couple of older gentlemen with a history and hanging out. And, Bob Knight has moved back to Bloomington after healing and patching up a lot of wounds. Keady, word is he's moving back to West Lafayette full time, so he's going to be around even more and going to continue to watch, of course, Matt Painter, who was a former player of his and a former assistant of his, who has done a marvelous job running that basketball team ever since. So he's going to be around the program a lot more. And as you may or may not know, the Basketball Hall of Fame combines both college and pro together. There's actually a separate collegiate Basketball Hall of Fame, which he was inducted to 10 years ago. But regarding the, I think, more esteemed Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame, he joins a Hall of Fame class that includes, from this weekend, Greg Popovich just got in, Dwayne Wade, Dirk Nowitzki, Pau Gasol, Tony Parker, Becky Hammond, David Hickson, and Gary Blair. So a huge list of names. Those weren't the only ones, by the way. Those are just mentioning a few. And Michigan State coach Tom Izzo was the one that introduced Keady. So a little Big Ten connection there for Michigan State. Now, Keady was part of basketball, one form or another, for 6 decades. His first coaching gig was a high school job in Larned, Kansas. I had to look that up on a map. I wouldn't even begin to tell you where that is. And it's a million miles from anywhere. In fact, I think the closest city is Wichita, and it's not even that close as well. But I did look it up. Eventually, after moving around a little bit, he finally ended up at Purdue, where he coached for 25 years from 1980 to 2005, got to 17 NCAA tournaments. And along the way, the Boilermakers won 6 Big Ten titles under Keady. And, he's going to be remembered for that mean scowl that he always had on the sideline. But I tell you what, his teams were intense. They were tough and they were prepared and they won a lot of games. And I was thinking back before we started this podcast, some of the players that Keady had there at Purdue. And, big dog Glenn Robinson, I remember him. They got to Elite Eight in 1994. Robinson averaged 30 points a game all season long that year in the Big Ten. Just remarkable, and went on to have an NBA career. Matt Waddle was the one that was given the ball. He was the guard, 460 assists, basically just passing it to Glenn Robinson, and Glenn Robinson scoring. Tough players like Brian Cardinal, always remember him. He would always just kill us on the boards at Indiana. I'll tell you that, in the late 90s. Quanzo Martin, a pretty good shooter who ended up being he's a coach now and making his way as a basketball coach in college. I remember Troy Lewis in the late 80s, won back-to-back Big Ten titles as well. And there was Steve Reed in the early to mid 80s. Now, Steve Reed might not come to mind right away, but he's a great trivia question, answer to a question. He was just a 5'9" guard, and he was the one that was shooting the free throw at Assembly Hall when Bob Knight threw the chair and went right by him in the lane. So Steve Reed will always have that memory. But nevertheless, after all of that, Gene Keady is finally a member of the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame, and well-deserved it. So you Purdue Boilermaker fans, I'm sure you caught that over the weekend. Congratulations. I want to thank everybody for making Locked On Big Ten your first listen every day. And everydayers out there, our next show is going to have the latest from all the training camps going on of your favorite teams in the Big Ten. Plus, I want you to be on the lookout for our Locked On Big Ten Roundtable with other Locked On hosts from various Locked On Big Ten schools. And it's the ultimate college football preview on Locked On Big Ten. The release date is coming up shortly, and I will let you know when that is. Also, be sure to subscribe on YouTube. Yeah, again, another note. You guys help me get over 2,000 subscribers real quick as we just started this thing. Man, we're over 2,600. I'm hopeful we're going to get past 3,000 subscribers before football season with your help. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe. It's free. You just click on the button, and you're good to go. And other, however you're consuming this, share and follow and like Locked On Big Ten. I will really appreciate you doing me a big favor. Thank you very much. Coming up, our next weekly feature, our Big Ten Top 10. You might not like this if you're a Big Ten. We're going to have to defend the Big Ten a little bit together. I want you to stick around and check this out. How many Big Ten football teams are among the greatest of all time according to one particular list? I don't know. I'm already shaking my head. I want you to check that out. That's coming up next on Locked On Big Ten. All right, time for our weekly feature here. Usually we'll do Big Ten Top 10 from the weekend when the games are rolling on. I want to get you used to these benchmarks on certain days. We always have fun on our final segment of the show. Again, no games, anything to talk about there. So I put together another list that I found online, and it kind of got my ire going a little bit. And I'm going to share it with you. Of course, if you're listening on audio, I'll describe it as we put it up on video for those of you checking us out on YouTube. And it is the all-time greatest teams, top 10 in college football history. Not a lot of Big Ten representation here. In fact, we'll put it up right now on the screen. And here it is. And this is from @BlueBloodsBiased on Twitter over the weekend. Found this. So, number one all time, the 2019 LSU Tigers. I really don't have a problem with that. That's, of course, Joe Burrow and Ed Orgeron. They were undefeated. That was a perfect season and a phenomenal team. So I don't have a problem there. Although the number two team on this list, the 2004 USC Trojans, that and one other, which I'll share with you in a minute, might be the best. Now, I lived in Southern California in the early 2000s, so I saw this team. They were like the Beatles down there. This is Reggie Bush and Matt Leinart. Pete Carroll just had that team rolling. Absolutely rolling. In fact, I would wonder if you take the 2004 Trojans and go into the future, and let's say the Rams were in LA. They didn't move to LA till later, but the one that just won the Super Bowl, who would be more popular? I think I would, if they were going on at the same time, one on Saturdays and one on Sundays, I think the USC Trojans. Absolutely, I think the USC Trojans. And by the way, future Big Ten team. So do we count them? Probably don't get to count them in the Big Ten. And number 3, this is the other team I would make a strong argument for number 1, the 2001 Miami Hurricanes. And they had 17 players on that roster that eventually got drafted in the first round of the NFL. 17. 5 of them were that following year, the spring in 2002. But you had guys like Ed Reed and Clinton Portis, Andre Johnson, Brian McKinney, Jonathan Vilma, Willis McGahee. Just an incredible list of talent on that football team, all going to the NFL. At number 4, they have the 2005 Texas Longhorns, the 4th greatest team of all time. That was Vince Young. Top to bottom, I don't know. Maybe there was certainly a great team. Vince Young was certainly a great college quarterback, and that was certainly a great championship at the Rose Bowl against Southern Cal. Maybe the greatest ever. It was a lot of fun. At number 5, they have the 2022 Georgia Bulldogs. I mean, their defense alone. They're still, back-to-back champions. Why not? At number 6, the 1995 Nebraska Cornhuskers. Again, are we going to count this as a Big Ten team? Sure. Why not? Even though they weren't in the Big Ten at the time. Tom Osborne. Do you know that team averaged 53 points a game? Every single way. That's what they averaged. And they only gave up 14 points a game. They were blowing people out. They might need to be higher than number 6 of all time. I'll tell you that. Number 7, they have the 2018 Clemson Tigers. Of course, Dabo and Trevor Lawrence. They had it rolling at that time. The Florida State Seminoles from 2013 at number 8. That's Jimbo's team. We got another one on here from Florida State. At number 9, the 2020 Alabama Crimson Tide. You had to figure of all the teams that Nick Saban has won a championship with, one of them had to make this list. And this is the one where Devontae Smith won the Heisman as a receiver. And then, as I mentioned, another Florida State team at number 10. This would be going back to 1999. They were wire to wire. Bobby Bowden, number 1 all season long, Chris Wenke and company. So there's the list. Now, who's not on it? The 2002 Ohio State Buckeyes, first team ever to make it 14-0. The 1997 Michigan team, Charles Woodson, not on it. I think a lot of you Big Ten fans might have a problem with that. I'd like to hear your opinion on that. Again, hit me up at Twitter at Talk Big Ten, or maybe the comments here on the bottom of the YouTube page. So that's the list. Thought I'd share it with you. That's some fun, but I think I got some big disagreements there as well. I want to thank you for making Locked On Big Ten your first listen every day. You everydayers out there, our next show of the latest from all the Big Ten camps. And again, all of you, look out for our Locked On Big Ten Roundtable podcast with other Locked On podcasters coming up soon. I will let you know. Many ways to contact me. I told you about Twitter at Talk Big Ten, also on the YouTube comments. Be sure to subscribe. Again, let's get those numbers up. We're going to hit 3,000 together, all of us, before the start of the college football season. Follow this podcast right now in your favorite podcast app, and you'll get the latest episode of Locked On Big Ten as soon as it becomes available each and every day. And I want you to check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast for the latest on everything going on in sports. In the meantime, thank you for spending some time with us here. Tell your friends about us. Share us. Have a great day. Can't wait to talk to you next time. I'm Craig Sheeman for Locked On Big Ten.